Hi, Seagull class. I have a new book to start reading aloud today. It's called Legends of the Seminoles. And it's stories that are told by Betty Mae Jumper. The illustrations are by Guy LaBree. Now, these stories are stories that have been told for many, many years. And so over time, because they weren't written down and they were just told through voice from grandmothers and aunts and uncles and moms and dads to children, the stories would change a little over time. But they wanted to write them down in a book so that they could keep these stories the same way that they were told by Betty Mae Jumper, who is a Seminole. I'll read a little bit of the back before we get started. Late at night, around the campfires, Seminole children, safely tucked into mosquito nets, used to listen to the elders retelling the old stories and legends. Now these legends of mischievous rabbit, the corn lady, the deer girl, and all the creatures of the Florida Everglades are written down for the first time for all to enjoy. These tales tell valuable lessons about living in harmony with nature and about why the world is the way that it is. You will be delighted in these images of the way of life and beliefs of the Seminoles of Florida, a nation with few members, but with a rich and vital heritage. Each story is illustrated with an original painting. So these are a collection of short stories, and the first one is called Two Hunters. And here's the painting, made especially for this book. What do you think this story will be about? Well, let's find out. This first part is something that Betty Mae was remembering. I remember my mother telling this story. It was her way of teaching us, don't ever eat anything out of place. In other words, if you find candy, don't eat it off the ground. A lot of these stories are to help teach children something important to learn. On the edge of the Everglades lived two men from the village of many Indians. These two men were hunters who went into the glades for months at a time. Sometimes, when the hunting was good, they came back to the village with 2 weeks or less, with lots of meat which they would smoke and dry. They hunted deer and birds and picked up as many water turtles as they could fit into their 2 canoes. They only hunted when they had to, when the meat supply had run out. Early one spring, the 2 hunters talked about the big lake and how there would surely be lots of game around there at this time of the year. We will return in 2 weeks or less, they assured their families. Now is a good time to hunt near the big lake. They left in the morning and, on the second day, made camp near the big lake. On the way, the 2 hunters talked about how the hunting would be good, for they saw many animals around eating the green grass. After making camp, they settled down to sleep. As the sun rose the next morning, they hurried out and immediately killed a deer. It took most of the day to clean the large deer. They dried and smoked the meat so that it would keep until they returned home. Both men were filled with happiness and good feelings, for they were sure there was plenty of game around and that this trip away from the village would be short. They would return soon with lots of meat for their families. They went to sleep early. When they awoke the next morning, they were surprised to see that it was raining very hard. The rain fell most of the day, so they stayed at the camp. In the late afternoon, the rain finally stopped and the sun came out. "It's too late now to hunt," said one hunter. "I guess we'll have to wait until tomorrow. I think I'll take a little walk along the lake." The other hunter was feeling hungry, so he cooked some deer meat. Soon the hunter returned, carrying 2 big fish. "Look what I found," he said. "Beautiful bass, big and fat." "Where did you get those fish?" asked the other hunter. "I didn't see you take anything to fish with when you left." "No," the hunter explained. "I found them jumping on the ground near the lake, so I picked them up. I guess they must have come down with the rain." "Go and put them into the lake," said the other hunter, "and let us eat the meat that I am cooking." "Oh no," his friend replied. "These fish are too good to throw away. I'm going to clean and cook them right away." And so he did. After the meal, they sat around the fire and talked. They agreed to start early the next day and maybe kill 2 deer and fix them before nightfall. Soon it was time to go to sleep. All the night birds were singing away. Somewhere near, in a tree, an old owl was laughing and crying throughout the night. In the middle of the night, the hunter who ate the fish called and called, "Come here! Come here!" His partner was awakened and yelled out, "What's wrong?" He stood up and walked over to his friend's mosquito net. He stared in fright as his friend spoke. "I think I'm turning into a snake. You told me not to eat that fish, but I didn't listen to you. Now look at me." The hunter started a fire to get a better look at his troubled friend. His legs had already turned into a snake's tail. "I want you to go home. Don't wait to see how I look. You can't help me now," said the man who was turning into a snake. "By daylight, I will be completely turned into the shape of a snake. Go home and tell my wife and children what has happened to me. Also, tell my parents, sisters, and brothers. Tell them when the moon is full to come and see me." Bring all my family to the lake. Remember the big log near the lake? I want you to hit it 4 times when the sun is right in the middle of the day. I want them to see me and I want to talk to them. Tell them not to be afraid. I won't hurt them. Now go. Get out of here and run home. The other hunter left without looking back, taking with him the meat they had prepared. On the second day, he reached the village of many Indians and told his friend's family the bad news. Then the day came for the hunter to take his friend's family to the lake. They arrived at the lake beneath the full moon and camped out, waiting nervously for the next day. Finally, when the sun reached the middle of the day, he led them to the big log and fulfilled his friend's request. He hit the log twice, 3 times, 4 times. When he was finished, bubbles came up from the middle of the lake. Then up came the head of a large snake. The children were scared, but the older people told them to be quiet and listen to what the snake had to say. The snake floated to the top of the lake and slithered near the shore where his family stood. Slowly, the snake moved towards them. "Come close," said the snake. "It's me. I wish to talk to you. For after this, I will never speak again." When they had all moved close, the young snake began to speak. "I did wrong when I cleaned those fish, cooked them, and ate them. I knew better, but I went against the forbidden law of our elders. I am paying for it now. When you leave, I want my family to never think bad about me. Think forward and go on with your life, for I will never be back. This lake is going to be my home. I will live in this water until I die. When you all go, never come back to this lake, for once you all leave, all of my memories will be gone. I won't know you at all. I might be mean and I might hurt you. It is the life of a snake I'll be living. Just remember all the good things and forgive me." The snake turned to his hunter friend. "I want you to please help my family and share meat with them. Teach my sons to be good hunters like you. Make sure they take care of their mother." The hunter friend promised he would. "Now," said the snake, "I'm coming to the top. I want you to see all of me." And when he did, everyone could see that he was a huge snake, longer than a canoe. Then suddenly the snake went underwater. When he came back up, he was back where he started from, in the middle of the lake. The snake stuck his tail high out of the water and waved it at them. Then he went deep, deep down into the black waters of the big lake. With sad feelings, his family turned and left the big lake, never to return. Here's a little bit of their patchwork sewing. Some of you did the patchwork art lesson while we were in class. I think we did a pattern called Rain. So that's a different pattern. That one looks complicated. What did you think of that story? What lesson do you think they were trying to teach the children? Is there a lesson or a rule that you have to follow that you think would make a good story? Of why it is that you should follow it? It can be magical like this story was. Doesn't have to be real. Here's the next story. It's called Alligator. So here's the painting. This is really incredible artwork. So this first part is not part of the story, but just an introduction from Betty Mae. The Seminoles would never harm or kill an animal except for food. When my great uncle told me he was hunting for deer or a turkey or gopher, why, that was exactly what he came back with. And no part of the animal was ever wasted. Now, alligators were a little different because we had sport with them. We used to drag them out and have a game to see who could put one to sleep first. The Seminoles have always played with gators, even though they are dangerous. When the world was new, there was only one language, and all living things understood each other. So when there was a gathering, everyone would come. Birds, people, animals, just any living thing. They would all come to perform their talents, to show off and see who was better than who. Among them was a rabbit who was not much of a performer. He was walking along the lake, looking for something to do, when he came upon an alligator with his mouth open, facing the sun. The rabbit hopped on over, kicked the alligator, and asked, "What are you doing?" "Ha!" said the gator. "Don't you know I'm drying my mouth to kill the germs?" The rabbit thought about this and then sat down to talk a while. He asked the gator if he could hear the songs and dancings at the gathering. "Oh, yes," said the gator, "I hear." The rabbit suggested they move closer to the dance area. "All right," said the gator, who followed the rabbit towards the grounds. When they got closer, the rabbit suddenly picked up a stick and started beating on the alligator until he ran back to the lake. A few days later, the rabbit again went for a walk and ran into a squirrel wearing a pretty jacket. The rabbit asked if he would loan his jacket, but the squirrel said, "No, I don't want to loan it to you." But the rabbit has a way to get the things he wants, so somehow he got the jacket from the squirrel. "Don't forget to come back with my jacket," said the squirrel, as the lying rabbit ran away. It wasn't long before the rabbit came upon the alligator in the same place as before. With the jacket on, Rabbit looked a lot like Squirrel. The Squirrel/Rabbit went right up to the Gator and said, "Hello." "Hello," said the Gator, "and goodbye. Away with you. I was beaten by your kind the other day." "Really? Who was it?" asked the Squirrel/Rabbit. "The Rabbit," snarled the Alligator. Squirrel/Rabbit then asked the Alligator how he could be killed. Now, the Gator didn't know the Rabbit had borrowed the Squirrel's jacket. "Well," said the Gator, "first you hit my back, and I can't move. Then if you hit me on the head, it will truly kill me." "Oh," said the Squirrel/Rabbit. Then the Squirrel/Rabbit said, "Gator, do you see that hill? Why don't you get on top of that hill? You could be closer to the sun, and it would make you dry faster." The Gator thought this was a good idea, so he began to climb the hill, still not knowing that it was the lying Rabbit dressed in a squirrel's jacket. "I'll come with you and talk with you," said the Squirrel/Rabbit. "Okay," said the Gator. Away they started up the hill, but before they got to the top, Rabbit picked up a stick and hit the Alligator on the back. Then Rabbit hit Alligator on the top of the head, and the Gator fell and died. So, if anyone wishes to kill an alligator, this is how it's done. That was an interesting lesson to learn. That one probably doesn't have as much to do with us today like the first one, of not eating something that you find. But I wonder how it really served the Seminole children. Can you think of why that would be important for them to know? What's something that's important for you to know that might not be important for other children? Do you have any important rules that you like to follow? Maybe you could write a story about that one. You know, in lots of different cultures, groups of people, the rabbit symbolizes someone who is a trickster, or who lies, or who is clever. But then in other cultures, it symbolizes someone who is quiet and timid and shy, maybe. What do you think a rabbit's personality is like? Maybe it's none of those things. It's a lot to think about. Well, the next story is called Box Turtles, and I'll read that to you another day.